Hello, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Publisher Podcast from Mediahuis. I'm Esther Thorpe, and in this podcast we're exploring the people and products powering publishing, both through the podcast and our newsletter, both of which you can find at voices.media. Before we get underway, if you're planning to be at the Definitive AI Forum this Tuesday, which we're running with Flashes and Flames, please do say hello. It's sold out, so I can't even plug tickets, but if you can't make it, don't worry, you won't miss out completely. We'll be releasing selected stage sessions as podcasts for a special season in January. But you will miss festive drinks, sorry. This week we hear from Liesbeth Nizet, Head of Future Audiences Monetization at Mediahuis. She's focused on next generation audiences and helping build future-proof business models that bridge editorial purpose and commercial potential. I talked to her about stereotypes around young people paying for news, to what extent demographics are helpful when understanding behaviours, and what she's doing at Mediahuis to encourage younger audiences to engage with news content. Once again, this episode was recorded at FIPP Congress, so be warned there's a bit of background chatter and even some music. I started out by asking Liesbeth how she ended up with one of the most unique job titles I've come across in the media industry, Head of Future Audiences Monetization.
So I've been working for Mediahuis almost 15 years. Started in the newsroom, went into marketing, went into subscriptions, part of technology as well. But this role of Head of Future Audiences Monetization is now 1.5 years that I'm doing it. And it started because we saw that from a company point of view, that our business model was going to be shaken up by two things. First of all, of course, AI, and where we don't know what it will do, but also the fact that we lost somehow connection with younger audiences. Now, so we really wanted to see, okay, how can we make sure that Mediahuis is also future-proof within 10 or 15 years, not only by looking at younger audiences, so that's why it's called future audiences, but people that today, that have some kind of affinity with news, but that don't come to our own platforms today. And then of course the M in my title is the monetization part. How are we going to make money within the next coming years?
So is that idea that younger audiences very much, they do consume news, it's very passive, they come across it on their social platforms. Is it about sort of trying to get them to maybe take a more active role in going and seeking it on platforms like yours?
Well, I think it's with both. They are, we did a lot of focus groups with young people because we started a new Gen Z brand earlier this year, which is some kind of 360-degree innovation for Mediahuis. And we really focused on this very young age group, 18-24, the Gen Zers, because it's super interesting. If we understand how they are acting, we can also see what could work for our other brands. So what have we seen there? That the first question is, are we able to make journalism for that generation? Is journalism even a thing? Because as you say, they are pretty passive consumers. They live their day through TikTok and cat videos and influencer drama.
Yeah, and we've got all these sort of creators as sort of quote journalists now, which is concerning in many ways.
Exactly. And amongst all those things, when they go in the morning to TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, they feel satisfied, or they have the feeling that, okay, if I meet someone today, I have the impression that I am up to date in what's happening. So it's a non-negotiable that we should be there with our news brands, because it's also there that you build trust, and it will be all about that. And we also need to educate those younger people on what journalism is and what the important principles in journalism is. And so we built this brand around perspectives, because that's what younger people said to us. They say, we really know that when we are on TikTok, that we see the perspective of this one person or this influencer, for example. So give us more perspectives, and if you want to do it even better, help us to form our own perspective out of it. And that's how we started it. We were working with creators and stuff like that. So that was for me, that was the most scary part. I always think that the monetization part, we will always find a way.
Because I think for others, the monetization is the scary part.
Yeah, but if you're able to catch the eyes and the attention of a certain audience, then you will always find a way to make money around it. And especially if it's young people and you know their interests and you know what they are seeking for, that's a goldmine for advertisers, for example. So on the B2B side, there are a lot of possibilities. On the other hand, on the B2C side, will younger people still be paying for news? Yeah, it will not be the transactional subscriptions that you take for a whole of a lifetime. That probably won't be the case. It will be rather being, for example, memberships, or maybe even micropayments on certain niches that really interest you. Think about what's happening on Substack, for example. If you are able to catch the eyeballs, but for us it's really important that it's with the mission. So it's not that we are putting cat videos all over and because it's funny and that to catch the attention. No, so we really need to do it with journalism. Then there is a way.
So has this been sort of getting journalists to maybe put themselves in front of the camera,
yes.
be more creative, style themselves?
Yes, because that is what they like about creators as well, and news influencers and so on. It's someone that is telling the story to them, that is giving explainers. And those journalists that I'm telling you about from this news brand, it's so supernatural for them to do it. But for our existing brands, it's of course much tougher because they got hired to write articles, and so it's hard to put them in front of a camera because it might also have a strange effect. But there are some of them. So the first step was to make sure that within the organization that there was some kind of awareness that this was a new way of bringing your story to people. And of course, we also have podcasts, and podcast is also already a step more outside. But even with that, we also need to level those things up, because the podcast, it's not the goal that those are just articles that are brought up out loud. So we also need to see, okay, how can we bring that interaction? How can we say and create this habit and this people wanting to follow other people? That's really something that we need to put in our whole organization.
Yeah. Does part of that involve hiring maybe younger journalists or journalists of that generation and bring them in-house?
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't know how it is in the US or in the UK, but in our home markets, Belgium and the Netherlands, it's not part of the educational system. Journalists still need to choose, okay, are you going to be a journalist who writes? Are you going for radio, or are you going for video?
Okay.
And so there's also a whole part. So we try to recruit people, younger people that have that in there, that don't see those silos, and that
because you need to be able to do it all, right?
You need to be able to do it all, and even that find it fun to edit their stuff and stuff like that. So it goes, it's really another value chain that you are creating.
Yeah. The question of monetization, I always find a really interesting one. I'm sure you're asked this a lot, but I've just started paying for magazine and news subscriptions. I'm early 30s, and I'm kind of at the point in my life where, financial stability, we've got a bit of extra disposable income to spend on that. Is it a case that maybe, have younger audiences ever prioritized paying for news? And is it a case that, once they sort of grow a bit older or grow up, that they will then start to pay? Or is that an attitude that kind of risks alienating them because they'll get to the point that they would have paid, but they're just completely switched off?
It's used to be that journey that, for example, you go to college, you study, and you need a newspaper to be able to do it. Newspapers give free subscriptions or at a very low price. Okay, then you start working, you start your career, you don't have a lot of money, but once you are settled and so on, you take a subscription, probably the one that you have read in school, and then you become a lifetime subscriber. But those patterns don't fit anymore, because there's also just so much choice now. It's the distribution of news is so fragmented, and in terms of monetization, we really need to think about, okay, what revenue streams will be the most valuable for our brands. And to your question, have young people been paying for news? Probably not, but they are paying for a skin on Fortnite. They are paying for a nice weekend, Instagram-ish with Airbnb. They are paying for their Red Bull. So how can we make our news so interesting or so relevant or so representative for them that they want to pay for it, even in a small amount, or by engaging, or those are also ways of monetization.
What are you doing at Mediahuis to kind of encourage that? Like you mentioned, you'd launched some new brands, and I think you've got a Future Insights board as well.
Yeah, the Future Insights board is basically an advisory board to our board of directors. Because Mediahuis is a group of legacy media brands, and we really feel that with the two big things that are coming up or that we are squeezed into, generative AI and creator economy, that we really needed some external viewpoints on that it wouldn't come only from us, and it's not an evolving story. It will be more, we will need people with that kind of expertise to help our board decide on, okay, we should do an investment there or do an investment there. But the people that are in there, and for example, there was Lucy Kung that was yesterday here on stage on the creator economy. They are really presenting as a mirror. And that is what is so helpful for us, because we see things evolving, and but really having us challenged on the ideas that we have, that's really helpful.
Slightly left field one, and I'm sure I've seen you talking about this on LinkedIn, that we do these labels, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, whatever's coming next. Are those demographic categories actually helpful to understanding the behaviours within that? Or are there behaviours that will sort of stretch across generations? There are people who may be very pro-paying or anti-paying or anything like that.
I think if I've done quite some generational research to answer exactly that kind of question. And what you see is Gen Z is quite a rebellious generation. They are the most rebellious. If you look at millennials or even
millennials are very compliant, I know that one.
And the alphas are also more compliant. And how do we see that? For example, with on advertising. The Gen Zers say, if it's not authentic, it's not okay for us. We see that. I have my own kids, Gen Z, put their phone on flight mode when they are playing games, do not have advertising. I have another one in Gen Alpha, and they are much more tolerant. They grew up with all this, and it's part of their world. So if we are able to find a solution for Gen Z, the millennials will also follow, and the alphas will also follow. So I think the worst thing that we could do is, I think branding is really something that we need to work on with all our titles, because with this Gen Z generation, we might become very invisible. If we are not meeting them where they are, because it's on their terms, they are off platform. If you want news to reach me, you need to be there. So, we are also not visible in the streets. People don't have any newspapers on the train. There are no places where you can buy newspapers in the street anymore. And if we are not where they are, we might become invisible. And if we become invisible, we won't monetize them either. So it's all this thinking that we need to do. Yeah.
There were a few people yesterday that said about the power that their brands have had. I think like Time in The Economist said, you've got these huge legacy brands that people are naturally attracted to. When it comes to news, is there a sort of maybe more of a distrust from those younger generations of legacy, of established media? I know that Trump will say things about the media institution that are maybe not positive. Do you see that kind of maybe that brand there can maybe be a distractor rather than?
Yeah, there are graphs that show exactly what you are seeing. If you ask people, what divides society most, then you have at the bottom politicians. I think it's pretty clear. But just above that, it's news media and journalists. And generative AI and social media are seen as less dividing. So that's a real threat. Now, if I see how we need to build on that trust. And I think those strong brands, we need to really show them what they stand for, and that what the news that we deliver is trustworthy and relevant for the people that read it. And I think that's really the key to work on that, but to find a way that it also hits younger generations, because I see too often legacy brands within and outside Mediahuis writing about younger people, but not to younger people. And what they hate is those institutions. They hate to be preached at. And that is where we can make the difference. And with this new news brand that I'm talking about, Spill News, that's exactly what we do. And we have our journalists there are younger than 25. They don't need to ask people what keeps them awake at night. They embody that generation. And so we have things about fat bikes, and we have things about a new wheat shop that is opening, which is great because that's what lives, but also about politics. There are elections in the Netherlands next week. What does all those programs of those parties mean for young people? And that is what they are seeking for, and from a trusted view. And another thing I want to add, I think the evolution of AI, if you now see with Sora, all those movies that are made, and the really funny reels that you found on Instagram, now you see the bunnies on the trampoline and so on. Nowadays it seems that it was AI. Yeah. And so I think that this will have an effect on, okay, but guys, what is then trustworthy? What can I trust? And I think that the news brands
you need to be there ready
to bring them home. Yeah. But we need to do it with the right journalism for them.
Yeah. Do you think, obviously you mentioned AI there as a distrust thing. Do you think there's a role, like, are you using it at all at Mediahuis to maybe bring them in, or do you see it as a bit more of a threat to what's going on?
I think AI is something fantastic. If I see how it can help us in terms of efficiency, in convenience, but the real thing that we need to do as journalists is bring new stories, find and make and create stories. And that is something that will be very hard for AI. AI will be able to help us in summarizing, searching for pictures, all this convenient stuff. But the core of what we do, bringing independent journalism, that will be a human that will bring it, because it hasn't existed yet before. So AI cannot.
Until they build robots that can go out.
But it will be hard, because maybe AI can write a better article on how to learn and run 10 miles as fast as you can. So we will really need to rethink what is human journalism.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the themes this week. A final thing, because I'm aware the music has jacked up a level. Yeah. What would your advice be for publishers who are maybe starting that journey of, okay, we need to attract these younger audiences to future-proof ourselves? Where should they start?
That's a really good question. I would say look in your newsroom for the young people, and not necessarily young, but those who are thinking outside your usual ecosystem.
Young at
heart, aware of what is happening outside. I know at Mediahuis we have had the strategy, and it's a very effective strategy, and still today we bring people to our platforms and we monetize them there with advertising and with subscriptions. But what we need now is, people that are on the lookout on what is happening in the world and how can we translate it to our journalism. And basically it's not anything else than being very close to your audience, both those who read or listen or watch your news, but also for advertisers. Look what they need, because there we can still be a very strong bridge within advertisers and news and reach the audiences that they seek for.
Honestly, I think if you're not willing to put in the work to reach the audiences, you don't deserve one.
No, but that's, And you will only be able to sell it to your audience, to advertisers, if the product market fit is right. Advertisers are doing now so much stuff with creators, but they don't know how to do it. And we can be a real good bridge in there, because creators are basically independent journalists or columnists or whatever that how you could call them. So
I think Jacob yesterday called them whole media organizations.
But that's the case. So there are really opportunities, because And it's really in the partnership with creators and journalists, because they can provide us new ways of storytelling. But on the other way, we can also provide them quite some stuff. Legal support, tooling, access to some events sometimes, or to some people that we have relationships with. So it doesn't have to be an or story. No.
Thanks so much to Liesbeth for taking the time to speak to us. Now don't forget, we've got a write-up of the key learnings from this interview on voices.media, or get it dropped into your inbox every Tuesday if you sign up to the Publisher newsletter, also on voices.media. We'll be back next week with our final guest of this season, DC Thomson's CEO Rebecca Miskin. Until then, keep up with all things Media Voices by following us on LinkedIn and subscribing to the Publisher newsletter over on voices.media. And remember, if you're in London on Tuesday for our AI forum, please do say hello. Until next week, goodbye.